We're going to start with Governor Pataki and what he said about the woman he'd like to run against for the big job, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
We are the party of the middle class. Unless by middle class they mean someone who left the White House dead broke and 10 years later had $100 million. Unless by middle class they mean someone who charges a poor country $500,000 for a half-hour speech. That's their party's candidate. She speaks for the middle class?
So, Al, every Republican who runs is going to take their best shot at Hillary Clinton. How would you rate how Pataki talked about her in terms of the issues he chose, the tone, and the delivery?
Oh, I thought the delivery was good. I thought they were good shots. He's not going to be the anti-Hillary candidate, though, Mark. He spent 6 years as governor working with her when she was senator, and that's what governors and senators do. But that rather ill positions him for that role. Carly Fiorina actually, I think, has even better sound bites than George Pataki. So that's not going to be his road to victory.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's a pretty rich guy himself, probably not as rich as the Clintons, but it's going to be interesting to see what the Clinton opposition research team does to people who come after her for being out of touch, for being so wealthy. I'm going to be interested to see. They've already started going back a little bit, her allies, on Jeb Bush and his wealth and how he made it. But I'll be interested to see if anybody starts to do damage. Fiorina, for instance, is quite rich. I've not seen, at least above the surface, any Clinton allies going after her. But I suspect that's coming if people start to hone that line of attack.
Mark, if they hit 4 or 5% in the polls, it'll come.
Yeah. All right. Another thing Governor Pataki talked about quite a bit today was 9/11. Of course, he was governor of New York when that tragedy occurred. And he talked today at some length about how that experience shaped his views, including on foreign policy.
I saw up close the horrible consequences of too many believing that because radical Islam was thousands of miles away across an ocean, that we were safe in America. But I will never forget the lesson of September 11th. We will destroy radical Islam's ability to attack us over there before they have the chance to attack us here.
So, Al, obviously 9/11 is still a pretty big touchstone for the country, for the Republican Party. How do you rate Pataki's message on that?
Mark, I want to say something nice about George Pataki. You know, he's a good guy. But this one doesn't cut either. Rudy Giuliani was the person most identified with 9/11. And if it didn't cut for him, and it didn't at all, why is it going to cut for George Pataki?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is certainly a big part of his pitch, but as you suggested, he is not nationally associated with that. It's going to be hard for people to convince him. And the filter, particularly New York-based reporters, recall 9/11, think about 9/11 and Pataki's leadership almost always in contrast to how Rudy Giuliani was perceived on those days, as opposed to Pataki.
Yeah, and I do think, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Rand Paul, I think with ISIS and other things, the country is a little bit more hawkish than it was when Rudy ran. But I don't think George Pataki is going to say, I'm the man with a bullhorn who stood up against, against that terrible threat back on that awful day. I don't think his record's bad on that. I just don't think it's going to be the sort of thing that'll rally people around him.
Yeah. Overall, though, I think you agree, and based on watching his performance today, he is getting better. He is getting more experience as a presidential candidate, just in terms of delivery. And I still believe he'll have New Hampshire, not to himself, but he'll spend a lot of time up there. He has a good cultural fit for the state, and he showed that today. He's going to have the ability to talk to an audience that will listen to him, even if it doesn't move his poll numbers very much.
But don't underestimate, you're going to laugh again at me, Mark, Lindsey Graham up there, too. New Hampshire is a perfect Lindsey Graham state, who's the one person who will be a real hawk, which may appeal to certain voters up there.
Right. All right, one more soundbite we want to play real quick here, which is Governor Pataki's core message, smaller government.
Government has grown too big, too powerful, too expensive, too intrusive. They told me that when I ran for governor of New York. They said I couldn't win. Too many people were dependent on government. The bureaucrats and powerful interests were too strong. The people couldn't regain their confidence in New York's future. In a sense, they were right. They couldn't do it. But I knew I could, and we did.
Again, as you suggested, other governors in this race have cut spending. It's going to be hard for him to break through there, but I do think he's going to influence the debate on this issue.
Yeah, he's sincere on this. There is no pro-regulation core in the Republican Party base, so it's an issue that will resonate with voters. And I think he did it pretty well today.
Yeah. His problem is if he starts to get some traction on this issue, people will scrutinize his record in New York. He did have a Democratic legislature to deal with, and he didn't control spending as much as he would have liked, but he is going to have to deal with the record of what New York spent during the time he was in office.
Yeah, and it's going to be compared to who? Compared to Bush, compared to Walker, compared to the others, and that may make it hard for him to break out.
Yeah, he's one of the people vying to get into the debates with this standard of only the top 10 getting into at least the first couple debates. I think if he finds his way in, unlikely at this point, but if he finds his way in, he will be a formidable debater, more formidable than some people think.
Yeah, but watch Mike Huckabee and Ted Cruz.